Hello, this is Evelyn of The Modern Needle on Facebook and YouTube, and Evelyn S on Ravelry. And I have a neat trick for you how to get beautiful joins in the in your heel flap and in the gusset. As you can see, there are no holes anywhere. Not in the gusset transition, not in the heel cap, and not on the sides where you pick up the gusset. If you want to know how that is done, let me be your yarn whisperer and show you. The yarn that I'm using is Orange Crush and Pinky by Leo and Roxy. And the pattern that I'm using is Basic Socks by Tin Can Knits. The pattern gives instructions for 3 yarn weights and sizes from newborn, I believe, all the way up to large adult. So let's have a look and see how this is done. As you can see, the transition here is beautiful. The heel is a slip stitch heel where you knit one and you slip one and you knit one and you slip one from the beginning to the end of the row. The slip stitch pushes the knit stitch out on the front, which means it gives a beautiful reinforced column because the slip stitch runs in behind this, therefore creating almost like a double layer, which gives you a bit of a cushion on the heel. They're supposed to wear a little bit longer. This is not where I wear out my heel. I actually don't wear out any bits of the heel at all. I wear them out down here if I do wear anything at all. But we're talking about the heel today and what it's supposed to do. I don't know where you wear out your socks, but it is supposed to help. And it adds a little bit of cushion to the back of your heel. So let's have a look at how this is done. I have made a baby sock to show you in thicker yarn. I have knitted 24 stitches for my baby sock. It's not going to be anything, but let's pretend it is a baby sock. I knitted some on the side so that you can see the transition once we get to it. And the way that this is normally set up, if you are a beginner knitter, is you have a circumference of stitches. In my case, this is 24. So half the stitches, you have them either on magic loop or DP ends. If you're on magic loop, half the stitches sit on the front, which is the top of your foot, and the other half sits on the back needle, which is the back of your stitches and will be the heel. If you have DP ends, you'll have 2 stitches or 2 needles that contain the front of your foot and 2 needles that contain the back of your heel. And the tips and tricks that I'm going to give you, they don't actually change the pattern. It's just the technique that I am changing, not the pattern itself, which is beautiful because that way you can incorporate this into any pattern that you wish, because I'm not changing the pattern. I am changing the technique on how to do this. So if you have your slip stitches, and I have my needles are the front needle, which has the front of the foot, and the back has my heel. This is where I will start my heel. In reality, I don't worry too much about where the tail is. Am I halfway through or am I at the beginning of the row? This will be 1/2 row of the total circumference of your foot. A half row in sock weight yarn, even in bigger yarn compared to the sock, is just a tiny fraction of the width. So if I have a half row is somewhere less or somewhere more, I don't actually worry about that. Nobody would know that. It'll not ever show up, and it's not my hill to die on. Let's put it that way. So if we do this slip stitch heel, I do it over my 12 stitches, and it will be, normally it is knit 2, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1. However, I do my slip stitches on the back of the knit row for 2 reasons. One of them is I can knit faster than I can purl, and I enjoy the knits more than I do the purl. So if I can cut the purling time in half, that's good for me. And the other more important thing is that it's actually visual. I can see where my slip stitches are. So if I'm talking, and I do that a lot because I knit all the time, if I'm talking to somebody, I don't get lost because the visual is right there. I know where I need to slip. I know where I need to purl. And if I make a mistake, I see that right away. I think back how many stitches are on a normal roll, 30 some odd in fingering weight. That's not a big thing to think back because somewhere within that row, I made a mistake and I can see right away where I made it. So this is what we are going to do. And in addition to that, we are going to wrap the last stitch, and I'm going to show you how this is done. If you work the heel in one color, you can ignore the instructions for the next 2 seconds. If we are going to work the heel in 2 colors, which I will show you how to do, these instructions are for you. One knit row takes 3 times the yarn width for one row. So 1, 2, 3, and we give a little bit for the tail. This is what we're going to have hanging off as the tail. It's a bit long, but in the big skein of a whole thing of yarn, it's not a big deal. If you have a little bit of extra and waist bothers you, don't worry about that bit. It's easier to have like an inch or 2 longer than not have enough. So actually I'll give it a bit extra just in case. So normally the instructions in whatever you are knitting would say knit 2 and then start slipping with a yarn in back. I'm not doing that. I'm going to knit right across this row here, right to the last stitch. And normally I don't slip the first stitch. I always slip my last stitch because then I don't need to worry about, oh, do I need to slip it with the yarn in the front or do I need to slip it with the yarn in the back? To make a nice column on the sides, I just slip my last stitch, turn it around and knit it off, and then I do get that beautiful round, and I don't need row or edge, and I don't need to think about anything at all. So I'm at the last stitch here. My next row is a purl row, so I'm going to set this up for purl row, which means the yarn comes in the front. Whether you're continental or a thrower, yarn comes in the front. So what I'm doing here is I'm wrapping this yarn right around this last edge stitch, which is what I want. It does 2 things. It helps me pick up my stitches on the side, plus it will tighten that last stitch so it doesn't bag out, period. There we go. I will purl the first stitch, I will purl the second stitch, and now my slip stitch columns start. Slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, and I'm also going to slip the last stitch, But we're not going to worry about that because we're setting up the yarn for the knitting row in the front, which means the yarn needs to come to the front. So we're sliding the yarn between these two stitches here. I pick up my last stitch. I will also slip it and turn my row. In effect, I'm anchoring. Normally you would get a sloppy stitch because I have two slipped stitches here, but we're not having a sloppy stitch because I'm anchoring this slipped stitch here by wrapping this last stitch. And we need, normally it's 24 stitches divided by 2, which is what I have, is 12. If I need to knit 12 rows, knit 1 row, purl 2, slip 1, purl 1 until the end, and then we wrap this last stitch here. If this is 1 pass, I need to have 6 passes. Oh, I thought I did that. Of course I did. This is, we need to have 6 passes, front and back. That will give us our 12 rows. So that means I will have 6 wraps on the side. Now, if your instructions say you need to knit this bit longer, then go ahead and knit it as per your instructions and keep wrapping your last stitch. So I'm at row 3. I'm just knitting this row here. And you can see knitting is faster. I'm at the last stitch. I will bring it to the front, setting it up for the purl round in the back. There we go. Purl the first 2 stitches. Why do we not purl the first stitch and then slip the second one? There's nothing anchoring that first stitch, so this wonks out a little bit and makes your slipped stitches on the side sloppy. So we purl the 2, and I can see this here is a slipped stitch. I have an extra needle here so I can show you. This is a slipped stitch. If I follow the column along, this is my slipped stitch for this column. So we slipped one, we knitted across it, and the knit stitch is a purl stitch in the back. So we have a slipped stitch, and your purl stitch will slip the next stitch and knit the next stitch. And I know that this is a knit column because there are only knits in here. There is no lifted or slipped stitch here. So this is the thing with curly needles. Okay, we slip 1 stitch, we purl the next, slip, and I don't even pull my needle all the way back. I slip it and purl, slip it, bring the yarn to the back because I'm setting up my knitting row, and slip the last stitch. As you can see, this is now my second wrap. This is the first wrap here. 1. And this will be my second wrap. So we'll knit this row. Oops. I have a light in front of my nose and I have the camera in between myself and the knitting. So I apologize if I don't grab the yarn properly. I used wooden needles because they're a bit more grippy just for that purpose. Normally I use metal needles on wool like this because it slides a bit better, but this is a bit grippier, so it hangs on to my stitches better for this purpose. So I will slip my last stitch to the front because I'm setting up the purl row, and knit the first, purl the first 2. 1, 2. Try not to get my fingers in there. Again, you can see that we slipped this guy here twice already. I will slip him again, purl, slip, purl. And there is no guesswork because I can see what it is that I'm doing at all times. It just requires a little bit of rethinking. I slip this second last stitch, bring the yarn to the back. So I'm setting up for the knit round and do this again. I'll knit through. Set it up for the purl round, which means yarn in front. And let's put this here so that you can see a bit better. Have a visual reminder. We purl the first two and slip, purl. As you get on in here, it's really easy to see what it is that we are doing. And slip the second last, put the yarn in the back, slip the last and turn it. And you can see how tight that stitch in here is. It really does anchor it. When you change up techniques about anything, it takes a little bit of time for your brain to adjust. If you're a completely new knitter, hooray for you, because you don't already have habits that you want to change. You can start right from the beginning here and do it. Whereas knitters that have been knitting for some time, when I started flipping this, I think I must have already been knitting for like 30 years before I realized it's actually way easier. See, when I'm talking, it's way easier and to do it this way. And then, okay, so now I'm off. Yeah, I know I'm off. So where did we need to get? And that's what I mean by I can see what it is that I'm doing. So this is a knit. This needs to be slipped, sorry, purled, purl, slip, purl, slip. There we go. I should have done that prior. We only need 6 passes, which is not hard to do. You can count it in the front if you want to, because we slip every second stitch here. If you count them, you know exactly how many passes we have already done. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were to count this, every 2 stitches measures up to 1 of the slipped ones. As you can see here, so this is how many knots I should have on the side or wraps. I do 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're almost there. It's kind of funny if you only have to knit a tiny heel to show something. Bring it back to the front because I'm setting up the purl row. 1, 2, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip in between. And you can see how this really thickens up the fabric, where the slipped stitch pushes out this stitch here in the front, and it's quite pretty actually. So let's have a look where we're at. I think one more pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the last pass. Knit it real quick. It's only 12 stitches here. And again, if your pattern says knit an X number of rows, then do what your pattern says, but use this technique instead. Okay, so 1, 2, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip, purl, slip in between the last two. There we go. Again, this anchors a stitch that would otherwise be a bit sloppy on the side, and you can already see the little wrap bumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. Yeah, you can see it really well. And you can see that this down here is from your purl stitch. It's not one of the bumps, but if we needed to close up the hole, we'll treat it as a bump. This also is your purl stitch and not one of the bumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So now we're starting on the heel cap, and the formula for the heel cap is a little bit different. I will put it up here as well. We have 12 stitches. So obviously I did this wrong here. Give me a pen. The paper is laying on my pen. So this should actually be 6 on each side because I have 12 stitches. Oops, 6. Sorry. 6 and 6 is 12. That is the stitches that I have on here. My midpoint is 6 stitches. So the rule is, it doesn't matter how big your sock is, how little your sock is, that rule stays the same. It doesn't matter what yarn you use, fingering to super duper deluxe bulky, it doesn't matter. You knit to the half. In my case, this is 6 stitches. We add 2 stitches past the half. So I will knit 8 stitches. And then we start the SSK and knit 1. We turn our work. We purl 5, purl 2 together, purl 1. And that is the formula for any sock, any yarn weight, any stitch amount. So the heel cap, the decreases move out towards the sock, which means we are knitting it this way. We are decreasing out towards these ends and knit short rows across it, and that curls the fabric so that instead of knitting just this way, now we're going this way. It gives us that little bend in the heel, which is what we need to fit our foot. Otherwise we'll have bubbles on the back, and of course we don't want that. So I leave this here while I'm knitting. I'm hoping, so here it's still in frame. Sorry about the silly little scroll. So I'm still wrapping, and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is my halfway point. I'm knitting 2 beyond. 1, 2. Your pattern will say slip, slip, knit. So slip. What happens when we slip, slip, knit? If we were just to knit this into the back, the first stitch that lays on top, the knit stitch, will be crossed. We don't want that. We want to have a pretty open stitch. So we slip it. And I actually don't slip that second one. I just turn my first one. So I slipped the first one, and then I knit it through the back loop because I slipped it. Let's have a look here. And then I tighten up this stitch here pretty good. I want to remove any slack that any knit two togethers create. And then I knit one. And now I turn. I move the slip stitch back onto my right hand needle. And now I will purl 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I need to say slip 1 stitch, slip 1 stitch, and then go ahead into the purl 5. Now we're going to purl 2 together, which is pretty easy. And as you can see, when we purl 2 together, it will actually push that decrease, it leans it to the left, away from the heel. I will also tighten this stitch here and purl 1. And now I will turn. Now normally you have a lot more stitches on here than just the few that I shown. Once I knit back to this guy here, you can really see that I have a gap here. So you don't need to mark anything. And I will have a gap here. I'm slipping the first stitch. And now I knit right to 1 stitch before the gap. And I will knit those 2 together. I'll turn my first stitch. You can do a regular slip stitch if this is what you like. That's up to you 100%. And I'll slip that back. We will purl to the end. I slip the first stitch and will purl to the end. And we will purl these 2 together to close the gap. That will push it to the right and tighten up that stitch. So this basically forms your heel, and even though this is a tiny heel, you can see how it bends it and brings your stitches around and curls them into an arch. I can show you that on the big sock here because it's easier to see. So in essence, you're knitting the short rows here and you're curling the heel and bringing it forward. That is what's happening here. If you can see this bit from straight from the heel, we're curving it around and knitting forward. Even though we only had like 2 passes here, you can see how this was achieved. So now we're back at the front here. So normally you would knit across here and then pick up the stitches on the side. However, if you're knitting with one color, you knit back and you pick up the stitches to the left, knit around, and then pick up the stitches to the right. However, because I use 2 colors, we are here, and I like to pick up these bumps or these wraps with the same color and knit them as the heel, because that will blend it right into your work. So when you switch over to the main color of the heel, you have a gorgeous transition. So how do we do this? I like to pick up from the inside here. My inside is my purl stitches. And I pick up towards the tail because I will use my tail to knit my first row up to here. So let me set that up. And sorry, I bumped the light, and of course there's knots in the yarn. Okay. Normally I would use this needle here to do this and then knit up with this needle. However, the circumference would be really tight and then you can't see anything. So I'll put this yarn over here from the top, and I'm working with the tail yarn in a minute. First, I will pick up my wraps. And as you can see, when you have your purl side towards you, the wrap is made up out of 2 bumps, if you will. One lays flat across and is always really flat, and the other one kind of tilts a little bit away from that flat one, and it's this guy here that's the true wrap. That's what we want to pick up. If I pick up this guy here instead, it will just elongate the purls. Now, in reality, I don't actually think that it matters too much which one you pick up. Just be consistent. So here I have an extra sock needle, and I can just run it right through here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are my wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you can see, if I push it this way here, they're gorgeous. So I will turn my work around, and again, I did this with 2 needles because I didn't want to block your view. So, and I really hope I was in focus because there was more. Let me check. Okay, I'm half in, half out, so I will repeat it. And I'll keep it so that you can see it. I have the inside of the sock facing me, and I want to work and pick up towards the tail because I will use the tail to knit up. So 2 parts of the bump. The bottom one is the purl curve of your purl, and the top one is just flat across. So if I just turn that or curl that a little bit towards me, I can just take my needle, whether the top needle or the bottom needle. Well, actually I can take the top needle just so that you can see. And no, this is not the top needle. Anyways, you get my point. Okay. Here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And actually this here is these needles are a 3.75 and this here is a 2.25. If you have a thinner needle to pick this up, feel free to pick it up. This is only going to be a stitch holder anyway, so you're not knitting with this. And the tighter that you can pick this up without stretching it out, the better it is, the tighter your join is. So now I'm going to use the tail and I'm just going to knit up. And the way that I'm going to knit it, as you can see, if I were to knit it through the back loop, I would have an open stitch because they are picked up already twisted. So I'm just going to knit it through the front leg and knit. No, the other way around. They're not picked up twisted, they're just picked up straight, and the tail is not super long. If you want the tail to be longer, you can definitely leave a longer leg. So I will knit it through the back loop because I want to twist this first stitch here and close it, and you can see that it is twisted. The right leg is not in front, the left leg is in front. The difference would be this way, where you can see that the right leg is in front, but I don't want that. I want to kind of close that. If I do get a little gap, and most of the time I don't, but just in case, I do want to close it. And if it is hard to get in, go into the front and then roll your needle to the back and twist it. Okay, I did my 6 stitches, and this is how this looks. Now I can pull this needle over. This is my yarn tail here. And again, if you are, and I'm going to cross these tails, my working yarn and the tail, because I do want to have them crossed, so there is again no hole here, and I will knit across the top of the cap. As you can see, there will be no hole here. I'm tightening this tail. If you are knitting in just one color, this is where you pick up. Instead of coming from here, your yarn would be still up here, and you knit across. Ignore that you don't have any stitches on this side. You will knit across. Wrap your yarn and knit across. Actually, you won't be able to wrap your yarn, because if you finished on a knit 1, then you wrap your yarn. If you finished on knit 2 together, you will not wrap your yarn. And I will knit my last stitch. Now I'm going to set up the stitches. Instead of knitting where I have the back of the heel on one needle and the front of the stitches on another, where it creates tension on this join here, because I have so many needles in the back and not so many in the front, I will switch my stitches. So when I knit, my needles will have half of this side and half of this side on the needle, so I will not stretch out or bag out that very bottom first 2 stitches until I decrease some of these stitches here to ease the curve that's on my needle. So here I will pull it to about half. It doesn't really matter. I'll pull out my cord this way. Oops. Come on. There we go. Pull on the cord. There we go. Just want to clean that up for you so that you can see. Now I'm on the left side of the heel. I did the right side. If you have one color, you just knit across this top half and split the cords so that you only have half of the heel on one stitch. Why becomes apparent in 2 seconds. Again, I will turn it to this side here, and I'll pick up my wraps. And one side usually has 1 wrap extra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As you can see, I pulled up the bottom there. Where's my wrap? Like I said, I can see the top of the wrap a lot easier on this side. Here is the wrap. And as you can see, when I pick it up, it looks like this. So again, nice and tight. And now, again, I will knit them. And you have to check, how did you pick them up? How are they oriented? So my stitch is open this way. So if I were to knit it through the back loop, my stitch is open. I don't want to do that. I want to twist it. So now I can knit it through the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so actually I had 7 on this side. And you can see already how tight and beautiful that is. Now I can break my yarn for here. I won't break it, but let's see, where is my yarn? My yarn is on this side here. So, actually, never mind about that. I will just take the stitches back onto my left needle because I need to get back to the working yarn here. Pull it out somewhere here. The half. It does sound a little bit fiddly. I don't normally find it fiddly, but you know, when you're on camera and you want to do something and then it kind of looks like that. So okay, I'm just transferring the stitches onto this needle. If you don't mind breaking yarn, you can break the working yarn on the side that it is, or right at the beginning, maybe knit 1 row across and leave it leave it parked on the left side, because that's where you need to pick it up. And then instead of starting the contrast yarn here, even though you brought the working yarn over to this side, to start again on this side. Either way, you have to transfer some of the stitches onto the needle here. Come on. These are the Chow with the spin cable. And the join is actually not as eventless as I would like it, but it is what it is. Most of the time it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm back in working mode. So normally, now we have to decrease out these stitches here, and we will make sure that there is no hole coming from this side here. Okay, I'm going to put this down here for a minute. Sorry, I'm going to split the cord here first. So now my stitches actually are no longer separated into front and back, but they're separated into side to side. Okay. I think maybe this last stitch here was not knitted. Doesn't look knitted. Okay. There we go. So here we are. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick. These are all of the stitches that we need to decrease out. We need to get back to 12 stitches on here. So an easy way to do that is you count your stitches: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I need to have 11 and 10. Sorry, 10 and 11 is 21 stitches. I need to divide that by, sorry, I'll take my 12 stitches away. Minus 12 is 9 stitches. 12 plus 9 is 21. And so I need to decrease 9 stitches. Now this will be on both sides, so I take my 9 divided by 2. So on one side I will decrease 4, and on the other side I will decrease 5 stitches. Perfect. Does it matter which side? If you remember where you had your 6th bump, which is on the right side, or your 7th bump, 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 7, on this side here. So I make myself stitch markers, and if you watched my videos before, you know I love baby elastics. Not this one here. This is a hair elastic. I'm just using this to show you. I have little tiny baby elastics like this. They're toddler or baby elastics. They're very thin. They are 1 inch or half an inch circumference, 3/4 inch circumference. The tinier I can get them, the better it is. I don't like the sound of metal on metal, so I don't like these. Plus these are elasticy, so they're more used to me because I use them for row counting as well. When I come up on a row, I flip it on my thumb, I knit that stitch, and I pull it right back off without having to put down my needle, rearranging my hands, what have you. I'm always into the knit smarter, not harder. So I made myself stitch markers that look like this. I like the red for traffic light scenario. Red to me means stop, green means go. In reality, pick 2 colors that you like, but know which one means action happens here. For me, it's always red, orange, or pink. Anything with a red tint in it. It could be a purple if I don't find a red. It could be a reddish brown. It doesn't matter. As long as it looks kind of like in the red family, that will remind me I need to do something. So I make these little stitch markers by, and I showed that to you on the big ones, I'll pull them together like this. And then I just push one end through, and there you go. This is my stitch marker. If I want to separate them, I can do that really easy. I don't worry where the join is. Most of the time I try to get the join into the little loops, but it doesn't really matter. So this gives me this stitch marker. I need to decrease every second row. So when I knit, I put this here in the join. This is the front and the back of the foot. That's my marker. So now I take my main color, and this is for everybody, and I knit 1. And if I knit 1, I will have this little gap in here. So what I do is I'll pick up 1 stitch somewhere in here. So here I don't want to grab the middle unless I twist it. I could. Let's say I twist it and I sit it on here without that yarn in the back. Sorry, I have a light in the camera in front of my nose. So now it's twisted. When I knit these together, it will actually flip this guy. It will twist him. I knit them together, and it twisted the stitch coming up, yet I still get a little bit of a gap. So I might have to do something different. I might have to do, and this is more often what I do, is I'll pick the left leg from this guy, and I pick the right leg from the stitch beside it, and I knit those two together. If I have a hard time knitting them together, I'll just flip them over one another. And now let's see what happens here. I have a pretty tight join, but not as tight as I want. So I added one extra stitch here. Now, maybe I'll pick, I don't want to pick this guy here. Well, let's see if I twist him. Okay, and knit this together. See what happens. Okay, now I'm actually happy. That stitch sits behind the white. You can't really see it. And I added one stitch. So now in reality, I have 2 extra stitches that I need to get rid of. Not a problem. And I have red. This should have actually been green because this is my first knit row here. Sorry. Not doing anything. It's my first knit row. And I knit across. And I'm really not too worried about this. Here is the edge stitch from the heel cap, so it's a bit tighter, which is fine. You can see if I knit over it and it gives me a gap. Okay, let's take that guy in behind it and knit it together. As you can see, I twisted him, which gives me extra volume in here, and I knitted it together. I'm very happy with that. And now I knit across. Now I'm on the second bit here. Okay. Where's my yarn? Okay. So here I have my yarn, and I can see I have a gap here. So I will have to do something. I can use these guys here, this yarn here, to close it if I want to, or I can just knit it close in the same way that we have done the last one. So knit down. My stitches are all mounted correct. We already knitted one row past it. Okay, here I split the yarn a little bit. And you can see, because I picked up the stitches in the same yarn color, the transition is gorgeous. And we're still not doing anything because we're on a green row. So here's the end of my heel stitches. It's a big stitch because I got the end of the yarn here. So now I need to fix this here before we move on to the front. Again, as you can see, there is a bit of a gap. The gap in the sock yarn would be smaller because you have smaller yarn. So I pick up the left stitch of this one, and I'll pick up the right stitch of that guy, and I sit them on the needle together, and I knit them through the back loop. And let's see what we did here. This tightens it, and then of course I have to tighten the inside stitch. And I'm fairly happy, but I'm sure we can do just a little bit better. So where it likes to gap is here, so I pull this little guy here and this stitch, and I'll make one, and then I'll pull maybe the back stitch out of here, twist it. You can see this is open and I want to twist it and knit these two together. This belongs to here, and this stitch came from this side, so I will have to put another marker in. Of course I don't have a different color marker laying with there because I was all about the red for a minute to show you. And I knit these together, and there you go. It's all closed. So this is a bit of a trial and error. Sometimes I have to do nothing. Sometimes I only have to do something on the right side and not on the left. And it just depends how that works. So now we did the first pass, which was just a pass to close the gap and see how wonderful everything looks. Oh, I was going to show you a second way of going into those stitches. If you didn't want to pick up the wraps, you can pick up the stitches as in other videos between the wraps, and because they are tightened down with the wrap, it is easier to pick them up. But I think this looks quite pretty. So now I'm back over here, front of the leg. And again, from marker to marker, you need to have the stitch count again as you did before. So in my case, it would be 12 stitches on each side. So now I'm coming from a green, I'll pick up the pink, I knit my first stitch, and the decreases in everything lean towards your decreasing too. So here we're decreasing the heel, it leans into the heel. So I lift the first one, turn it, and knit through the back loop. You can do an SSK, a true SSK. I think these here lie flatter and nicer. I tug on the stitch to remove the slack. I rock it on the needle a little bit, and that also straightens out the wonkiness of the stitch underneath. Okay, now I can see here that this is a decrease round. So even if I'm talking to somebody, I'm on the red. And again, it isn't, in your case, it could be your favorite color ever, whatever it is, but it's a two action stitch marker. Oh, now that I'm talking, see? I will knit those two together because I'm on a decrease round. I will rock my needle and pull on it a little bit to remove the slack, knit my last one, switch the marker, and I'm back at the front of the foot. Very often the front of a foot will have a pattern, sometimes not, it depends what you are knitting. And I'm back to a regular row that has no decreases at all. We're just knitting over it, and I'm going to do this one more row here so I can show you how beautiful that looks. And I actually will separate this. And if I didn't say this before, the yarn that I'm using for my practice bit is Cascade 220. I wouldn't use that for a sock for sure, but it is one of my favorite yarns for other things. And for here, it's a bit sticky. It sticks a little bit to the wooden needle, so that's kind of nice. So they don't take off when I want to show you. I knit back up to the marker. And that marker also marks the end of the row for me, just for the decrease in the heel. If I were to count rows, I would have another marker in the front here, and I flip him to count my rows. This is my third row across, so I would have that going. And then I can pick up my work at any time. So we're going from the pink to a non-action row, so I just switch it to green or whatever color that you would like. For me, yeah, that just works for me because my brain sometimes blips out on me. That's what happens. And I don't want to think, oh, which one was that? And here I split the yarn. So I might have to go undo that stitch. Let me see. Yeah, now I have all of it. I lay it over, pop the first stitch up. There we go. There's my stitch. Straighten that out a little bit. And again, sometimes when you talk and do the same thing, you're like, what happened here? It happens to all of us. No worries. And again, I'm in a non-action row because my marker tells me that's where I am. There we go. Bring it back to the front. I can just knit right across, flip my front and back marker, and here I would be in row number 3. Slide my marker on, and this would travel every single row that I knit. So let's have a look and see how does this look. Where's my egg? My egg is in the sock. Let's have a look. How does this look? So that looks pretty good to me. There is a bit of a gap here. Once this is blocked, that gap will shrink. But look at the transition here. Look how beautiful that is. The top. I'm pulling this yarn here a little bit, but there is no gap in your transition here. Let me see. No gaps here. And let's see what happened on the bottom here. No. Whatever you see here poking through, I mean, even through the regular stitches, you can see the egg a little bit. This will close in your blocking. There's nothing there. Here is our slip heel. And that looks beautiful. So, I do hope, leave me a comment if you liked it, or if you want to see more videos like this. Like I said, there's nothing in the joints here. And then once I finish decreasing the leg out, then I switch back to front and back of the foot, because there is no artificial stretching or whatever off that stitch here, because we're pulling on the sides, so I didn't want that. So if you find that you had learned something today, or if you like my videos, leave me a comment, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I hope I see you next time in one of my tutorials or my knit and sit and knit. And I wish you a wonderful week and happy stitching.